Good evening, and welcome to Episode 8 of the Author's Outpost. I'm your host, who's way out of his comfort zone, Captain P.F. Dennis, and with me as usual
is the surprisingly wondering where the doom is Casmodian.
And with us again tonight is our girl Tuesday, Aleniskendra.
Hello, everybody.
Today was a big day for STO as Season 10 dropped. Also a sad day for us Foundry folk, as we won't have access to the editor for about 10 days to 2 weeks. But because I don't pay much attention, here is Casmodian, who usually knows and reads all the stuff.
Well, as Cap said, Season 10 dropped today, and the reason I'm looking for the doom is that there really hasn't been much, not compared to other seasons. Now, that's not to say that there aren't bugs. There are bugs kind of roaming all around. You'll find them. Don't freak out. It happens every time. Some of them are annoying. Like I've been hit by a bank bug right now where I can't use my shared bank at all. It just won't let me put anything in it. Other people are running into other things. If you are opening the Zindi lock boxes and you're getting the traits and all that kind of stuff, or the buff power ones actually, do not use them right now. They are apparently bugged. I believe that you said that they were doing maintenance tomorrow, Paul?
Yeah.
So it's possible that that fix might go in. I have not seen patch notes yet, but that doesn't mean they might not exist. At the moment, they don't exist. So there's a patch coming to fix some of the things tomorrow. Tomorrow being Wednesday, the 22nd.
Right, it's tomorrow. I saw the red block on the launcher when I opened it, but I'm not aware of any release notes that might have been put on the forums.
No, at this moment, I have not seen any communicated, but that doesn't mean that they won't appear sometime in the near future or possibly tomorrow morning. The bigger news that affects us right now is that we have a season that's launched, which means, as always, there is no Foundry. There are no missions. There is no editor. There's nothing but bitter, bitter tears. Now, if you absolutely need to get your fix, you can go play around and test out things over on Tribble. Now, granted, you won't get a lot of plays for anything you build on Tribble, but you can at least kind of test out ideas and otherwise see what you can do with the new stuff that we did get. Because, yes, we got all the things we've been talking about already. We've got the ships on the ground. We've got the star bases that we can use on the ground and in space. We've got the new diplomacy room map, which is the conference lounge from what I think looks like a sovereign, but the one from the old first contact missions from the clusters. We got all the little bits and bobs of ESD number 3. Well, I guess we can call it the Taco ESD.
Yeah, we got a few animated doors.
We've got more animated doors, and I believe we still will have the ESD map. It looks like he may have gotten a fix in to make it usable without having to take it out immediately, but that he was still going to have to go and fix some of the things. So all of that stuff is there and play withable, and you can test out map ideas, all that kind of stuff over on Tribble, because Tribble is there. Tribble should have an unlocked Foundry. Best case scenario, we're probably going to look at about 10 days before we get our access to the editor back. That's best case scenario, subject to things not blowing up spectacularly, yada yada.
Yes, and that's just because it takes time to republish.
That's the other thing too. It probably, I will say 72 hours before we start seeing missions republishing, so that time frame puts us roughly Friday, the 25th? I'm horrible.
No, it's the 24th.
24th, okay. That's a guesstimate. We could get them sooner. We could get them later. It all depends upon the way the database churns. We shall see. If you're listening and have a spotlight, obviously go ahead and check it. We'll have to get in contact with Trendy if we have to fix anything. Anybody who has a mission published, obviously you'll have to wait till the editor comes back as well. The other big thing is that everybody now gets to see the new sector map with the new alpha, beta, and gamma quadrants. Or I'm sorry, not gamma, delta.
And apparently they said it shouldn't affect our foundry doors.
For the most part, it shouldn't. But they did shift a lot of worlds around on the map to bring them more in line with the Doug Drexler and there were like 5 names that edited the book, but the Star Trek Star Charts book of the late '90s, which people can find examples of the pages online if they search, just Google. But this means that a number of worlds have shifted to a more canonical location on the map. So sector locations have changed. Obviously, we no longer have the true sector blocks of old. So it may require a little bit of redesignation of how to find a planet. But also there's a whole bunch more planets. We covered that before. So basically you can decide now if you're going to shift your mission to closer to where you intended it to be. Maybe one of the worlds you actually built your mission on actually exists now, and you can shift it there. But obviously, again, this is all predicated on getting the editor back. And that will be when we get it back. We've got a whole new reputation thing. We've got more playthrough for about a month to try and get your reputation up to tier 5. There's 3 new queued event things. I played through 2 of them today. And yeah, I'm not equipped very well for them. They are they're not hard, but there's definitely a stepped up difficulty. You can't just spam the fire key and do stuff. Now you have to actually kind of, actually use tactics. It's I don't know how to do this.
Yeah, I'll have to see how my Avenger holds up.
Because the Heralds are one of the more difficult things they put into the game now, and they made them difficult not by giving them lots of hit points. And of course we got 2 new PvE missions, which the first one, you'll probably get to find out real quick how well your Avenger holds up. The second one is full of Parises. Too many Parises. But
And how did he sound?
Robbie he actually sounds pretty much the same.
Good.
Not entirely certain about the avatar looking like I'd imagine him to look, but that's also because I've seen him in real life now, and he's not quite as drawn and thin. He's a little bit puffier.
Aren't we all?
Yes, I am the expanding Russian frontier. But that's what we have to look forward to, possibly this time next week, if we're lucky, getting the editor back.
Now we have a mission review from a first-time author called Wombat 140 that we played this week, entitled One of Our Telepaths is Missing.
Yep, right under the gun.
Well, I have to say that this mission is probably one of the most different missions I've played in a long time. It had a dreamy-like quality to it.
Yep.
I'm looking for the right word to describe it.
Surreal?
Yeah, I don't know, I just didn't want to use that word, I guess. The dialogue was well written, if a bit complicated, but enjoyable nonetheless. Just different, very different than most missions I've ever played. That's for sure.
I will say, this is a bit of a rarity for me. Now, obviously, a number of people that listen might know that I claim that I never play Foundry missions, which is not as true. not as true as has been said in the past. But very rarely, though, have I played a first-time author, and this was this author's first go at it. This was brand new. It's still owned, at least as of the Foundry republish. It was still only in review.
Yes, but when I actually played it, there were 6 plays.
Yes, well, that was partly because
right.
I came in before you.
Right, the 2 of you played it before I got to it. Yes, I was busy doing strange and wonderful things in After Effects most of the week. I can't stop. In the absence of Foundry, I suppose it's even going to be worse. But
Or
anyway,
better.
yeah, that's true. I thought her characters were interesting. She had at least 7 or 8 major characters.
Well, let's see. We had 5 that had dossiers on the ship,
Mm-hmm.
plus at least 2 more that we come across in the really surreal part.
Yeah, and all, all well differentiated and fleshed out, I thought. On the map side, which really isn't our focus here, but since we're reviewing a mission, we might mention it. There were a couple of little things.
And I'm going to blame it mostly on something that we probably need some way to, I don't know, bring up to people is the Snap 2s. I'll bet you dollars to donuts that the Snap 2 is what caused most of the map issues.
Yes.
Which is something that had me pulling my hair out for my first mission. Until someone finally said, "Oh, well that's because," and I was like, and no one told me this all this time, and no one told me.
Just turn that off. Just go up and click that closed. Yep.
But there's no even tooltip to say that pops up and says, "Hey, these control doing this."
Right. It's something you just have to guess at. If
Or
you
be told.
examine the editor at all, you say, "What does this do?"
Well, and then figure out that what it actually does when it does it.
You don't want. Yeah. Well, that's the first thing I do when I open the editor, is shut those things off and change the cursor to move the map. Every time, if it's not already done.
As I remember, I had spent like 3 hours trying to get some NPCs in chairs.
Once you finally found a chair.
Yes.
Yes, there is definitely that learning curve. If you're brave enough to jump into it without having any idea or any previous experience with it. But
So
the rewards are great, I think.
So, yeah, there were a few map problems. And Wombat, if you're listening, we would be willing to point out if you haven't already figured them out. And I will say that, though, the last map, or was it the second to last? I can't remember.
Which one?
The EV map.
Last map, I believe. Well, no, technically second to last.
Second to last, yes, because you're back on the ship after that.
Was nicely done.
Yeah, I admit, when I first, because I didn't turn around, I was at a loss to explain how it was done. I was thinking, how is this possible? I couldn't figure out how she did it, and then I turned around and I said, oh, because I saw the actual geometry.
Saw what the map was.
Yes. But, I'm so used to, like, sky towers for things like that, that I looked down and I said, wait, how is this happening?
Yep, low gravity, environment that'll kill a Thalian. Because I'll bet you that Thalians still die in space. Which is so funny.
Well, the thing that kills me is that I don't know about in the game, but Borg don't. And I can't figure that out. How a Borg survives in, the vacuum of space. They have organic parts. It doesn't make much sense, but alright.
So we definitely had characters that were fleshed out and interesting.
Yes.
We had a protagonist of a sort. Wouldn't say a true bad guy or a good guy.
No, it was a situational It was more because of a series of events than an intent.
This is it's a sort of episode that you'd expect to happen to Deanna.
Yes. Kendra, what do you think? You've been quiet.
I thought it was interesting. I think the whole concept of trying to portray a mental state or something that happens in a dreamlike way in the Foundry is very interesting. It definitely presents a completely different set of challenges than your average environment.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you have to explain everything that's going on in the mind through dialogue boxes, for the most part.
Right, without making people feel like you're making them read walls of text, which I thought was actually done quite well.
Yes, I never felt that I was reading overly much.
And that's actually kind of one of the side note things, is that in a dream environment, you're free to do things very differently than you would in a normal environment too. You can totally rearrange geometry like that for no reason other than and you don't have to explain why you do a thing.
So in that regard, it's kind of freeing.
Yeah, it frees us. It definitely is a situation that would free you from the normal constraints of an author where you have a static thing, which also means that you can include very non-canonical things like...
Right. As with Trek, most people who watch it and play these missions are always looking for the slip up, or always noticing the inconsistency.
And in a dreamscape, you can have inconsistencies galore,
right? Because
the mind does that sort of thing. Granted, we still can't simulate a cellular peptide cake, but...
But I would say I gave the mission 5 stars when I played it. I do most of the time, and I do it because I really didn't find anything, any gaping holes in this mission, and I don't like to discourage first-timers.
Well, and I was looking at it through the lens of, still only having one mission out there. I still only have one that I've actually completed, and I remember how painfully cringeworthy bad some of the mistakes were that I made my first time, and I actually thought that she did a really good job, especially for first mission.
She made a common rookie mistake, one that I know I made back then, and that's not naming the NPCs.
Well,
which, to be fair, she may not
be a thing.
Right, and she may not know you can, because I know I didn't until somebody said something.
Right. But I noticed that all the Borg that were floating, they all were, the name of the NPC.
Yes, and you had different Risa beachgoers walking around on one of the maps.
But again, that's a...
Yeah, it's very common. Very common. And I think that she probably was more concerned about the dialogue than things like that, than those kind of details. Because, again, I didn't find much in the way of typos. Maybe 1 or 2 through the whole thing, and there was plenty of dialogue.
Yes. And the map design for the cityscape was quite good.
Yes.
For a first-timer.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I don't really have any fault with the cityscape at all. There were 2 objects, I think, that were misaligned. And I think, 1 floor that was clipping. Which is better than me.
Yes. Well, that's just the offset thing. You know,
Right, that
you
can
know that you
obviously
need
happen
to do it, and sometimes you just overlook it.
And sometimes it seems to happen published too. That's why I'm cringing for when the republish happens, because I swear that when the database republishes things sometimes, it redoes the math on object alignments.
I still have
Yes.
a broken spotlight since the last republish.
Which, yeah, we need to probably both get with Trendy and go, can we has these back?
Yeah, I have to. It's unplayable. It's uncompletable. But anyway,
But yes, when we get the Foundry back, and it does reappear, well, obviously first we want to give her the opportunity to make fixes. I know she was mentioning something about needing to make some fixes that she was planning to do, today actually, which is kind of sad because she won't be able to touch it for at least a week. But I totally recommend trying it out.
well, I know that she had just done some because when I wrote her on the I answered her in the forums, she wrote back to me that she was glad that it was, it was good timing because she had just done some rework in it.
And we would love to see her get out of review and into the lists.
Well, I hope she will now. I mean, it's 5th place still, is it not?
That's where things get a little fuzzy. It seems like they changed that number. I'm seeing roughly, like, say, 15 to 20 sometimes.
Really?
Get them.
I think it's 20.
Wow.
That's what it was for me.
5 gets it off of the bottom list for the review,
Mm-hmm.
and where you can see it on the main master list. But to get it out of not be qualifying to qualify
Right,
seems
right.
to be about 15 to 20.
No, I mean just to get it out to the public.
Oh yeah, no, she should now be up on the main.
Yeah, no, I knew
regular search.
qualifying takes a great deal more, but just getting it out of the review stage is always
Let's get her qualified. Get people dilithium. Encourage them to give her more dilithium.
Yes, she deserves it. And that's Wombat 140, by the way.
I just referred to it as Wombat because I couldn't remember the numbers.
But yes. All right. We also watched an Enterprise episode this week.
Because it was about time again.
Yes, yeah. There's no real rhyme or reason to it. We started, I think, with an Enterprise, didn't we? I forget now, but
Well, I know we did it on the third episode.
yeah, it felt like we needed to do another one. So we went to the 3rd season. I believe it was 3rd season, episode 19.
Sounds right.
And
Which, for note, folks, that's a terrible idea if you've never actually watched any of Enterprise's 3rd season,
right.
because it is the most ambitious of any of the Star Treks with a full season arc.
Mm-hmm. As Kendra found out the hard way.
I was like, what's happening? I'm so confused.
Yeah, the recap helps a little bit, but not a whole lot, folks.
Yeah, it's tough for us even to do it. At what point in that Zindi arc were we? It was when they were first trying to convince Degra that the sphere builders might be have their own agenda.
So as the quick recap, Earth is attacked by a weapon, and the middle of Florida gets annihilated. This is by a race called the Zindi, which is actually not a race so much as a collective of races.
Mm-hmm.
There were 5, I believe. Am I counting the avians in that? I think I am.
Yes, the insects, the
insectoid, the aquatics, the arboreals, the reptiles. And did I say the avians?
Yes, you started with the avians.
Okay. Because the avians are the ones that are dead.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm trying to remember. It seems like I'm leaving one out. At any rate, they are actually a collective of races that evolved in...
The aquatics?
I thought I said them.
Oh, you might have.
But, hey, You guys can go watch it. You can find out what I'm forgetting, or you can check out the lock boxes. I'm sure they're in the lock boxes.
I
right now.
already opened a few lock boxes. That's the one thing I did do today.
So they attack Earth because they believe that they've been told that in the future Earth will come and completely annihilate them in their life as they know it. So they're building basically a Death Star. Let's just call it what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And Earth of 2153 sends the Enterprise out to do whatever it has to in order to stop the Death Star from being constructed. Well, they intercept the plans they were sent. They monkey around for about 19 episodes. They find out where this planet killer is being built. They go charging in on almost what amounts to a suicide mission. Archer gets captured, and the Enterprise gets basically utterly trashed.
Mm-hmm.
This is where we pick up with episode 19.
Yes.
Archer's getting his butt kicked by the part of the Xindi that don't like humans and are pretty much dead set on destroying them all. And Enterprise is a floating hunk of junk.
Yes.
I mean, I haven't seen that many holes in a ship since I was watching Voyager.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking, they took a year in hell and said, "Pah!
Yeah.
You think you gutted that ship?"
Yes, there were many dead crewmen, hull breaches everywhere, systems destroyed, not even thrusters.
And most importantly, the primary warp coil was shot, which means no warp drive, no getting home, no going forward. They're pretty much dead in the water. So, what do you do when your situation's that dire?
Well,
You answer a distress call.
right. And they meet up with these aliens.
And not Damar.
Yes, not Damar, and played by Casey Biggs.
In case you haven't figured it out, folks, there are a lot of not people that start an Enterprise.
Yep. Oh, Ethan Phillips, Jeffrey Combs. Lots. Although, I did see Degra in another role in Enterprise. Do you remember the wrist nipple?
Yes.
The head alien, the guy in charge of that ship, was Degra underneath that makeup.
Ah.
Anyway, so these aliens are helped out by Enterprise, and they're invited aboard, and the alien thinks that the damage was caused by the terrible spatial anomalies that are rampant in the expanse that they're in. And Archer, thinking, hey, well, maybe we can set up a trade with these guys, offers to give them Trellium-D, which will fortify their hull against these anomalies, for the badly needed warp coil. And the alien says no, because he doesn't have it to spare, and they're 3 years from home.
Which is a lot closer than Enterprise, but they don't have the supplies to make it back if they don't have a warp coil.
Right. So the big conflict in this episode comes to a head when Archer decides he's going to go ahead and steal the warp coil from these aliens because he has to. He doesn't have another choice. So he makes the call to commit a robbery. So he gets a team together, and he goes over to the alien ship, and they steal the warp coil. He did leave them a sufficient amount of Trellium-D and food and supplies, but he did strand them 3 years from home.
And that's sort of a theme of, especially the latter parts of the season of Enterprise, is how far will you go to, where is the line of where being humane is and saving the day.
Mm. Well, saving everything you know.
This is sort of the episode where, we'll say, Archer steps across the line.
Mm.
And shows that maybe humanity isn't quite as evolved as we'd like to think it will be in another 40 years.
Well, see, that's the big question, though. I mean, they wouldn't evolve. They'd all be dead. We'd be extinct if he didn't do that. So when you compare the massive result of not doing it,
the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one. It seems
like a very small thing to do wrong, to save an entire world.
Assuming there is really no other way.
Well, at that point, they believed there wasn't. I mean...
It made me think of a Voyager episode, which I have been frantically searching for, trying to figure out the name of, and I cannot find the episode for the life of me.
No.
But it's the episode where Voyager runs into the other ship that's stranded. And the other ship has found a way to use an alien life form as a power source.
Yes, that's the Equinox.
Yes.
Yes, that's actually a season finale and season opener, that two-part.
Was that
series.
5 or 6?
I can tell you in a second. Hang on.
It was certainly one of the later ones.
Yep. And that was John Savage as Captain Ransom.
But that same argument of when is it okay to basically go against what you believe is morally right?
Wait a second.
Or the other one from DS9 would be In the Pale Moonlight.
Yes, my favorite.
And I was trying to think if there's a TNG episode that kind of has a similar... TNG is kind of different because...
Excuse me, Kendra. It's episode 25 of season 5. And it's called Equinox, part 1, and it picks up first episode of season 6.
Okay.
That's the one you're looking for.
That's about where I thought. But, TNG. Did TNG do a moralistic one?
Now, you know, I don't ever remember them going that dark.
Because Picard was such a idealistic... I mean, they stopped other people from doing things.
Well, I mean, there are things that Data did, but there was always chalked up to his programming being adjusted.
The two I can think of that would maybe come closest are what was the episode with the Shellyak, where Data has to convince the colonists to leave the planet and force them off of it, or the first, I'll say, introduction we get to the Maquis.
Yes. When Ensign
when the Cardassians are enforcing the treaty and kick all of the Indians off of their planet.
Right.
And Wesley goes native.
That was Journey's End, I believe, was the name of that episode.
I think so, because it was the last episode of Wesley when he becomes full-on traveler, yada yada.
Yep, and disappears into wherever, and then shows up for Riker's wedding. You know,
in a Starfleet uniform.
Yes.
But that's neither here nor there.
No. Yeah. I mean, that had to be a simple decision. I mean, why? I don't know. I guess nobody was thinking of it. But, no, I think, you're right. There are very few of those, moral quandaries in TNG. It's usually everybody on the Enterprise is the righteous one, and
the TNG was more of the high-minded moral story, Whereas pretty much it's Gene's Trek versus, well, for lack of a better term, Brendan Braga or even Ron Moore's Trek.
Yes, but I mean, even the original series, you had Spock committing mutiny and stealing the Enterprise to bring Captain Pike back to Talos. I mean, he was forgiven, but he still did steal the ship, you know? Data did it, too. Because he had a homing beacon, a homing device implanted. At least Spock's was just a decision.
Or the Manchurian Geordie.
Yes. Yeah.
But overall, people will pan and say that Enterprise is a horrible series, and yes, it can be said that Enterprise certainly had inconsistencies, and Enterprise has some lackluster episodes.
Yeah, they all do. The
Xindi arc's probably weakest thing is that it went on the whole season. That's a lot of space you gotta fill.
Right. But I mean, no series is perfect, and I don't get the, Star Trek fans trashing Star Trek shows. To me, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, Voyager is a maligned, much hated franchise for reasons passing understanding. I mean, yeah, Janeway wasn't the most perfect captain. It wasn't a horrible show. It just wasn't horrible.
Realistically, let's say it all comes down to the writing pool.
Right.
They would inconsistently write characters, and that was probably what hurt both of the shows.
Yes, but are we comparing it to other Trek, or are we comparing it to regular television?
I'm comparing it to regular Trek.
Because I would watch Voyager over most any other show on TV.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's still Star Trek. I still watched it. I still rewatched some episodes. But it wasn't the same. All of the other series, you can connect with a character. I think anyone can find one of the regular characters that they connect with on some level. But it felt like because the personality of the characters was so inconsistent throughout Voyager, you could never really quite connect with a character. Just when you began to, they would completely change the character.
Realistically, Bob Picardo is the only one who really had consistency through the whole thing.
Not Tim Russ. You don't think Tuvok was a consistent character?
He was kind of bland.
But consistently
except for that
bland.
one time except for that one time when I totally put it on repeat when he kills Neelix.
Yeah.
Good times.
See, I don't hate Neelix either.
I liked Neelix.
Yeah, he was a good guy. He just was.
And they did somewhat develop his character. But see, I also liked Kes, and of course, she didn't last the whole show.
Well, talk about inconsistent. I thought Kes was extremely inconsistent.
Yes, and that was the problem, is that just when I started to like her character, they started changing her because they knew they were going to get rid of her.
Give her mind-melting powers and then have her come back and melt people's minds.
Yeah.
But they had started to develop her friendship with the Doctor, and I actually thought that would have been interesting had they actually brought it to completion.
Yeah, and then there's also the thing where she matures a little bit and dumps Neelix flat. It's like, sorry.
Which I think, again, was because they were getting rid of her.
Yeah. But I never understood that. And it happened, immediately. It did. There was no,
It didn't fit.
No. There was no growing apart. It was just I love you, and then sorry,
It wasn't like her character to do something like that.
And that was probably the biggest weakness of Enterprise, was that the characters on the show, a lot of them didn't get any real development. Malcolm Reed, the ship's tactical officer. Ooh, he was prototype Section 31. That's about all you really know. Wet naval tradition.
Right, his full
member
family.
of Section 31.
Yeah.
He's the British guy who likes to blow things up.
Yeah.
Hoshi Sato, ship's communication officer, basically the person who pioneers xenolinguistics for the entire fleet. She's afraid of space, and it's easier probably to list the things that she's not afraid of than that she is. That's her character development. Oh, and she totally wears midriff clothing when she's in the mirror universe.
Yeah, and she likes Dr. Flox's little pets.
Yes. I swear Porthos got more character development than some of the actual,
yes,
intelligent beings on the ship.
And they didn't have the bravery enough to make Malcolm the gay character he was supposed to be.
Right. Well, this was the late 90s, early aughts.
Yeah.
We've come a long way getting from there to here.
Yeah. I don't know. They've always been the first to do other things.
Well, Gene was always a bit of a stickler, too, but they could only bend things so far. I mean, bear in mind that up until... There were episodes of Star Trek I never saw in syndication in the early 80s because they still offended the South.
Right.
Like, I had never seen the infamous Uhura Kirk kiss on broadcast television because they would not show it in the South.
Yeah.
Not till, pretty much until DS9.
That's interesting. Because I grew up watching those. I'd seen all of them. And I'm talking, in the Northeast all through the 70s.
Well, things were done a little bit different down there.
Yes, it's still interesting, though. I think that, I'm that old that happens in my lifetime.
The long and short of it is, folks, give Enterprise a try. Watch all of it. Yes, you will probably go, ugh. Like, oh God, Trip's
yeah, but
pregnant.
then you get to season 4.
Yes.
And you can't stop watching it.
And I will up and down sing the praises of Manny Koto and what he tried to do with the series.
Yep.
If they had had the will to do it, I think Manny Koto could have done great things with a season 5 of Enterprise.
Sure. It would have gone the 7 that it should have. They all did. They should have just had
we
a
might
little
have
bit
even
more
gotten
faith.
a time jump, gotten another maybe season-long arc, but it would have been the Earth-Romulan War.
Mm.
And we would have gotten to the founding of the Federation, which...
But, we also would have gotten a lot of backstory on Romulans, which is something Enterprise did very well. You learned more about Vulcans in that show than you did in any of the others, by far.
They teased things. Like when with the Temporal Cold War, they teased the appearance of the Romulans. With one of the episodes, you see the Romulans, sort of. Fun note, the Romulan ship that we have in game, that the starting Bird of Prey, that's not the TOS one, that is the same style ship that you see in Enterprise.
Right. Yep.
The Tavaro, I believe.
Yes, exactly. Yep. And what they did with the Andorians and Tellarites too, and they fleshed that out in maybe a couple of episodes each. And just imagine what would have happened if they continued. We would have gotten the real backstory, the really well-written backstory.
We got more of the Tellarite history than we had, because Tellarites were just a guy in a pig mask.
Yeah, same thing with the Andorians. You saw the blue guy with the antenna was just in that Journey to Babel.
Yeah, well, there was one of them in Incarcerated with Garth.
Right.
He was one of the muscle.
Yeah.
And I think an Andorian is in the background one other place.
Yeah. But until
you get to the motion picture.
They weren't really any main characters. And then
you have Jeff Combs.
Yeah. And all the other actors, too, who played Andorians. They really fleshed them out. They just did a great job. Susie Plaxon was an Andorian once.
Yes,
Yeah.
but she's still a Klingon.
Yeah. She'll always be Kalar.
But if I haven't emphasized enough, definitely give it a watch. You can skip episodes. We won't hold it against you. Read the synopsises. But the Xindi arc is worth watching. But really, you get more of the discovery with the fourth season. You get the realignment of Vulcans to what you think they should be. You get the beginnings of the Federation being formed. And you see that there are machinations going on in the background.
Yep. And you know the Romulans are going to figure heavily into it in a possible Season 5 that never happened.
Which, the closest you can, and I will totally recommend going to it, the novelizations by Michael A. Martin for the Earth-Romulan War.
Yeah, who also wrote The Needs of the Many, the Star Trek Online story.
Indeed. They are totally worth it. Plus, also afterwards, and I am suddenly having a horrible memory moment, the Founding of the Federation novels by Christopher L. Bennett, who, if you haven't read his Temporal Investigations books, are totally worth it.
Also, and I'll just throw this in for one last side note, it's going really well until you get up to the series closer, which they decided to, instead of giving the Enterprise crew their own finale, they shoehorned the the end of the series into a TNG episode, which was kind of a slap in the face to the people who worked for the 4 years to bring that show together.
Yeah, there are better ways they could have closed out series, and Brenda Braga still to this day even admits that they might have chosen better. But, well, we can't rewrite time yet.
No. Yeah, there are a lot of what-ifs and too-bads that you just can't change. But, you know, the upshot is Season 4 of Enterprise I'll put up there with the best of any of the shows.
I mean, sure, it's no best of both worlds, but it'll do. It'll do.
Yes, the best of both worlds. I don't know.
Was a game changer in many.
Yes. As far as the story goes, and I think that it was more innovative because it was a cliffhanger. I think it grabbed more attention because it was a cliffhanger than the quality of the episode. If it had been a mid-season episode, I don't think we'd be saying today that it was like one of the best episodes ever done. I don't know. I can think of better TNG episodes than that. But...
Oh, sure. I mean, the Inner Light, Far and Above wipes it out. But for what it was, with ratcheting up suspense and making you wait 3 months.
Yeah. Yeah, the only thing I can compare it to now is the Walking Dead. You know, it's driving me crazy that I have to wait till October now.
I don't know. Time's Arrow drove me nuts.
Yeah.
Time Zero, yeah. Why
There's
is Data's head there?
Davidians.
How does it get there?
Yeah, that was a mystery for sure.
All right, and meanwhile, apparently we do have now patch notes for tomorrow, and
good.
looks like my issue will be resolved. It mentions it slightly differently, but maybe they're fixing the missing items and account banks and stuff will actually kind of sideways fix my inability to access my bank. It might, for all I know, my bank probably thinks it's full even though it's not.
Mm.
So we shall see. What I'm looking at right now doesn't really give time frame for what it is. It does say Foundry functions will temporarily not be available, which, well, we know that.
We know that, yes. And that's not really a fix. It's not, it was expected, and it's the normal routine.
Here we go. 2.5 hour maintenance starting at 7 Pacific, which is 10 o'clock Eastern. So basically a standard maintenance from 10 to about, well, let's say 1. It says 2.5 hours, but you know how these things go.
Okay. Well, sorry to say this week we didn't get any mail. You did get some comment, though. What, on the forums, Cass?
Yes. We got, of course now I have to pull it up here.
Oh, it's
but
okay.
we did have a listener.
In the meantime, I'll bring up the addresses for us. And I will also...
Here we go. It is by Stratius. Glad you guys are still doing these. Your work over the years has been crucial in keeping the ideas of Star Trek alive. Good on you. Also, I know you're trying to rally authors around the flag, so to speak. Please don't quit. Maybe on a future episode you could point out to some of us all the places we should promote and register our missions to try and get more of the serious Foundry mission players to play our stories rather than go in hoping for a quick shout-out. Well, that is certainly a thing we can potentially talk about.
Sure.
It is probably one of the biggest things that we've had ourselves gnashing of teeth and moaning of, is how we as an author can get our word out there and talk to more than a small percentage of the players, because the numbers we hear of players who use the forums or that are on social media, they aren't as big as you would like.
But I would say the first step is, getting people together into the community. The more people that come together, the easier it is to spread the word, I would think.
Right, to try and have a community without cliques and without niches, and try and actually all, form a federation of players whose goal is the betterment of the community and not just personal gain.
Right.
Doesn't that sound like an ideal that's something to strive for?
Someday. Actually, I was just going to say come on over to Starbase UGC. Our whole existence is based on helping authors to learn the Foundry and to get their missions out and to get them played. And, the more of us there are, the more able we are to do that. So, come join in. All right, I'll read the addresses. Our website is www.theauthorsoutpost.com. You can contact us at mailbag@theauthorsoutpost.com. Our Twitter handle is @AuthorsOutpost, and we have an IRC channel, #AuthorsOutpost, and aleniskendra can be reached at Tony L.A. Cross. All right, and we want to thank Kendra for being with us tonight.
Glad to be here.
And I'm going to say good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Maybe we'll have Doom tomorrow.